to sanctions. So we will have more on the story as it develops. Meanwhile, I want to shift gears and talk about the euro, which is gaining from its lowest level in almost a year, rising for the first time in 4 days as speculation cools on the possibility of further stimulus from the ECB. ECB President Mario Draghi had hinted at Jackson Hole last week that a worsening of the inflation outlook would provide a reason for easing. So while Europe may present an opportunity in stocks, what can companies with exposure to Europe do to hedge their currency risk? Here are some answers. Wolfgang Koester, CEO of Fire Apps, a currency risk management company for multinational firms. Okay, I'm a, say, U.S. firm who does a lot of business overseas. I'm watching the euro carefully. As that euro declines, how do I hedge?
Well, the first thing you got to do is you really have to understand where your exposures are. And, you know, you're typically not going to just have a dollar-euro exposure. You may have a euro-yen, euro-Swiss, euro-sterling. So what is your exposure against the euro? Do you have a really good understanding and good visibility towards that? And then get the analytics around that strong to be able to manage that towards decisions to manage that risk down to, for example, then hedging. You can do some things on the balance sheet internally, but overall, you need to really understand it, especially in these times when we're going to start hitting volatility again.
Well, you know, look, we're in a situation right now where the ECB has basically indicated that they're going to follow what the Fed had done. So they're going to, you know, put the sugar on, so to speak, you know, and we theoretically should then see a decline in the euro versus the dollar. Is that what you would anticipate, Wolfgang?
Absolutely. I think that they're going to keep the interest rates low. I think Draghi was pretty straightforward with that. But I think
how fast does that happen?
The interest rates keeping it here pretty quick. I mean, they're going to kind of steep it down here and just not even let it rise.
What about QE? It looks like they might be embarking on a QE.
Whatever it's going to take, and this is almost like what he said in July 2012 already when he was trying to make sure that the euro wouldn't fall apart. He said, whatever it takes. This was pretty close. This is where he said, listen, I'd rather do more than less. Less is worse. In this case, he's actually starting to participate, as other leaders in countries and central banks are doing, by actually talking their currency down. That's why you've seen it. You may see a spike up at the end of the day, but you're going to see a continuous fall, a strengthening of the dollar and falling of the euro.
What about your average investor who may be looking to buy into European stocks right now? How should they interpret this?
They should really be looking at companies that manage that currency risk properly. If companies had material impacts over the last 18 to 24 months, and they can look at that on a quarterly basis, then they should really investigate whether that's one they should be in. Otherwise, they should really stay away from those companies and look at companies that have not been materially impacted, which is one of the two things that you really want to do as an investor right now.
Another currency the world is keeping an eye on right now is the peso in Argentina. What are your thoughts on that?
Argentinian peso with the bond area is a significant issue for them. And I think it once again highlights this whole issue about possible volatility and continuous and increased volatility in the markets. And that's why companies, A, are looking at companies that aren't too impacted. B, they're looking at this space from a fintech perspective as well. What are the investors going to look at? They're looking at financial technology firms right now.
Do you think that we're going to see a devaluation of the peso?
I think we've already seen it. I think we've seen some.